There was an article written this week, and it was forwarded in one of the groups that I'm on, along with a response. I don't know if you guys saw the article, but what it said was essentially that, written by a guy who is definitely a Jew lover. I think his brother, if I remember correctly, was in a terror attack and succeeded in. He unfortunately died in the cause, but he managed to, I believe, he killed the attacker in that time. And this guy wrote a post. He must be a blogger who's pretty well known, because his blog got pretty out there. And it was all about the state of the Jews right now. Anyone saw it? Yeah. When I saw the post, it makes you feel despair and really helpless. That's what it's about. What he says essentially is that he says, I posted a couple days before October 7 and predicting the October 7 attacks. That's what he said. By the way, me too. I also predicted October 7 attacks. Because if you remember correctly, it was predicted in many places that any one day they could just override us, and what would happen if they did. It wasn't an absolute secret. If you recall, it was very simple. And also predicted because Shulchan Aruch says so. Shulchan Aruch says that if you give away land, then you cause the enemy to, you give them an ability to get close to you, and then they can, that it's going to be easy for them to conquer. So it's not like, oh my gosh, October 7 just happened. You took a bunch of murderers, 2 million of them, put them at your doorstep. What do you think is going to happen? So putting that aside. But then he says, I'm predicting right now that in the next month, this was written this week, there's going to be chas v'shalom, God forbid, I'm sure he didn't mean it either, but this is his prediction, an attack against Jews in the diaspora. And his point is that anti-Semitism is growing. Anti-Semitism is getting worse and worse and worse. It's becoming an absolute plague. It's becoming mainstream, not in Hamas, but rather in the Western world. In this modern, wonderful, westernized world that we are, it's becoming a very, very, very big issue. In fact, it's not all the time anti-Zionism, sometimes it's actually direct anti-Semitism. And people aren't scared to say it like it is. And it's an issue. And when you see mainstream people talk about it, and when you see how when something happens to us, nobody cares, and never when we do something to them, the whole world cares, that is an issue. So that's what it's and this is like the 1930s, of course, and this is the feeling in Germany when we thought we were safe, and this is what's happening. This is what he writes. Now, the part about it that I didn't understand was he says, and therefore, right, everyone should move to Israel. Because if you move to Israel, now you have an IDF which protects you, and Hashem protects the state of Israel, and so therefore it's going to be fine in Israel. Now, I had to agree with him at the first part. Anti-Semitism is definitely getting worse and worse and worse, and it's very scary given social media. The part I didn't understand was how he thinks that going to Israel is going to solve the problem, because the IDF is not an independent army. Even this week they said, the President of the United States gave us the green light to attack as we need to finish the war in Gaza. What on earth does that mean? You need the permission of the President of the United States to save yourself. Seriously? Like, that means you're not an independent army. So it would seem that actually, for the sake of Israel, the best thing to do is to keep Jews out in the diaspora. Not because we don't care about Israel, because we love Israel and because we want to be there. And so we're going to be here in order to protect them, in order to be fighting from all sorts of countries. Every country we live in, we want to be fighting for our people and for the land of Israel. Because we care, not because we're going to be here to be materialistic. That's not a good idea. If you want to be materialistic, go to Israel. If you don't, stay here and fight for Israel from here. Get the people on board and get lobby and politics and all that is a wonderful idea outside of Israel. So the part that I had a problem with was that the helplessness, he seemed to have a solution for the helplessness, and I don't. I think it's helpless and it's pretty terrible, and the solution that he has is not a solution. Therefore, there is no solution. So now what? What do we do? So I think we need to talk about it, I think, is a real thing. And I was just, a couple weeks ago, I went to visit a place called Aruba. So Aruba, interesting, because my good friend, the Shaliach over there, he is we actually discuss different shaylas all the time, and then we were talking, and then I said to him, maybe I should come to you. He said, yeah, sure. Open a kosher restaurant, it's amazing. There was a minyan, morning and evening. It was really nice. I discovered something fascinating about Aruba. Aruba has how many residents? Not much. 150,000 residents in Aruba. Aruba has how many Jews, would you say, of those 150,000? Answer is 150. 150 Jews. He had a camp there, a day camp for Gan Yisrael. In the camp, there were, I think, 12 kids. He said, I have 95% of the children of Aruba in my camp. Because there's 2 kids that couldn't get in. And so 12 came in. That's it. It's 95% of the kids. That's the amount of kids you have there. There's 150 Jews that we know about in Aruba. That's 0.1% of the population. Here's what's fascinating. There's a prime minister in Aruba. The prime minister, you know what he is? He's a Jew. You get it? 0.1% of the population of Aruba is Jewish, and the prime minister of Aruba is a Jew. He was prime minister till 2017. First his brother was, then he became. Then for 7 years he was no longer prime minister. Because during those 7 years he actually came to the Chabad house on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. He davened, he heard the shofar, etc. He says this past year he was already the prime minister, so he couldn't come daven. So, but he's got to hear shofar. So the rabbi says, I went to blow shofar for him. It's a 2-hour walk to go blow shofar for him. So he finished davening at 1 o'clock, left, boom, boom, got out of there. He walked for one Jew, the prime minister, to hear shofar. He got to him, he said, I got there at 3:10. He's like, you're 10 minutes late. It's like, yeah. He says, blew shofar and walked back. That's what he does. That's quite incredible, impressive actually. And I was thinking about this. There's something about that statistic that 0.1% of the population is Jewish, but that 0.1% has the prime minister in it. What does that tell us about us Jews? I think if we want to talk about anti-Semitism, and we want to talk about the odds that are stacked up against us, and the fact that today there is an anti-Semitic event probably every single day, if not more, happening in the world, yes, this is true. Because the numbers are totally stacked up completely against us. There's absolutely no way for us to survive in this situation. Correct. Why do we survive? Why are we still here? Why do we even produce the guy as the prime minister and blow shofar in his office? The reason is very simple. The reason is because it doesn't go by numbers. When Yaakov looks at Esav and he sees the numbers of Esav are insane, and so he was petrified, so Hashem says to him, V'aya Beit Yaakov esh, uVeit Yosef lehava, uVeit Esav lekash. The home of Yaakov becomes a fire, and the home of Esav becomes a straw. Yaakov becomes the fire, and Yosef becomes the flame, and you're able to burn him. Don't worry about it. If you want to know why there's an event every day in the world, it's very simple. Why? Because you have news. That's why. There always was an event everywhere in the world. It's a big world. But it's a very small world. If all you're watching is all the negative events in the world and you're focusing on those only, of course you're going to see an event every day. The question is what happens in my heart and in your heart. How am I feeling about this and how am I reacting to it? And that's where the issue is. It isn't by coincidence that what's being worked on to us is that we should feel afraid. The world wants us to feel afraid. And the key in every Jew is to admit that I feel helpless. And I do feel scared. They asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I believe you can see it on a video if I recall correctly, they said to him, do you think there could be another Holocaust? You know what his response is? Tomorrow morning. Of course there could be another Holocaust. What's the question? But God protects us. So you say, but where was God in the 1930s? I don't know. I'll tell you this much. He's protected us all the time, and he'll keep on protecting us. And the most important element in the protection of Hashem is that you and I feel the protection of Hashem. So lest we think that we can just, that what we feel is irrelevant, that's actually the entire key to everything. So I want to address something called Emunah, something called belief in Hashem. Do you believe in Hashem? If I say, do you believe in Hashem? No one's going to say no, right? Not nowadays. Now I'm going to ask you, could you give me a definition of what that means? Do you believe in God? Anyone? What does it mean to believe in God? Give me a running definition. I believe in God. I believe that God is. Fill in some blanks. Can do anything. What else? Loves us is nice. How about created us? And is with us all the time and runs the world and is controlling every little thing that happens, etc., 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 etc. All that. When you say God is the creator of the world, when you say God runs everything, when you say God is involved in every little facet of creation, guess what? That is not Emunah. That has nothing to do with belief in Hashem. You know what that is? I'll ask you a question. You see this room over here? I happen to have been very involved in the creation of this room. So I know myself how it was made very well, every detail of it. But if you don't, I'm going to tell you something. You know this room came into being? Swish, swish, there was a big bang. And then the sand just floated in and out of nowhere, and the cement came in, the sheetrock, and boom, 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 and suddenly everything came into being, and then the interior decoration, shh, and all done. You believe me? No. But did you see this place being created? No. So maybe it did. Maybe it happened that way. See, if you see the person next to you, that's clear. You see the person next to you. But you have the same clarity on the creation of this room? Yeah, you do. You know that no one made a building without making it. There's only one way to make a building, and that is if you get a contractor and you figure it out and you make the whole work of making it, and you also need an architect and you need the plumber and the electrician and all that. That's how it works. That's not called belief. What that's called is knowledge. It's intellectual. If I say I believe that God created the world, that's ridiculous. Like, what do you think? It came about on its own? You ever see the sun rising? You ever go up to see a sunrise? And sunrise, 5:16 in the morning. You can tell what time sunrise is, and it's unbelievable, like clockwork. Whatever time it says there, the sun will just show up. And suddenly this beautiful, stunning ball of fire will just rise up into the heavens every single morning. It's unbelievable. If you say that, oh, the sun is somebody running it, of course there's somebody behind it, there's a creator behind it, that is not Emunah. And if you say, I believe in Hashem, that He's the creator, you haven't begun to believe in Hashem. Not even begun. So when a person could be 85 years old, live their whole life as a believing Jew, and you are not a believing Jew. You're just a person who thought about something and arrived at a very simple conclusion. So if we say, was the world created by Hashem? Obviously. You know where Emunah begins? When you're a baby, yes. Omen. Yeah, that's why what's Emunah? It says Mordechai was Vayhi Omen et Hadassah. Omen is Emunah. What's Omen? Omen, it's a nurse. A baby nurse is called Omen. That's what it is. Actually, the exact word. Why is that? Why are we using that word for Emunah? Because Emunah is something totally different. Let's get this straight. If it's something which you can understand and you're resorting to Emunah, that's not Emunah. Emunah is when you cannot understand. If it's understandable, the fact that you, baby, don't understand it means go study. Go learn. So you'll say, yeah, but there's so many people who are atheists. So what am I supposed to do? If a guy walks into this room and he says the room is just, there was a big bang and boom, 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 and there was Gondwana and Laurasia, you ever learned those things? How the continents came together and then like boom and everything's whatever, and then it all came into being. And I'm looking at the guy like, did you fall off the moon? Like, how am I supposed to have an argument with a shaita? It's silly, it's insane, it's ridiculous. So why would you think that the world, which is giant, came into being on its own, right? When the room, that for sure was created by someone. And you know, if you believe in the Big Bang, you have to be a real big believer. You have to be a much greater believer in the Big Bang than you do to believe in God. Because who made the raw materials? I told you the example once, right? I heard it from him in Eretz Yisrael. Amazing. He says, if I tell you, they first came around with a train. So they said the train has 36 cars in the train. And they came in and all the wagon drivers are trying to figure out what's going on over here. So the chief wagon driver goes out, I'm going to figure out how those wagons made. He goes and he asks and he looks at around and what does he discover? You know something? I figured it out. He's trying to find where the horse is. How it's not possible for a wagon to travel without a horse. You know, sometimes you see a new invention that's impossible. You have, by the way, one of those inventions now. The same as the train. For people already like of a certain age, there's this thing called, if you checked it out, AI. It's mind-blowing. And you talk to him and he responds and he's quick and he gives you, and they're like, he says it like, how do you do that? It's really mind-blowing. So anyway, the same thing happened when that's the only things we used to already, inventions. But in those times, they weren't used to inventions. So they came to this little town and they come up with this this train. And the guy's like, how did you make that train? And he's wondering, how's that? I don't understand. So he goes and he figures out, he tells his friends, I solved it. This 36th car, there's a little thing inside there and it's pulled by the 35th car. So he's like, okay. How about the 35th car? He says, well, I was looking, I was wondering, I was checking it out, and I learned what I discovered that the 35th car is being pulled by the 34th car. And then he goes on and on. And number 10 is being pulled by number 9, and number 6 by number 5. And then they ask him, okay, number 2 is being pulled by number 1. So how's number 1 being pulled? What does he say? I got 35 out of 36 right. What do you, I don't know. I don't know how the first one's being pulled. That's what someone who says the Big Bang, he's looking at you with a straight face and saying that. You ask him, how was the world created? What does he say? We came from the apes. And the apes came from there, and they bum, 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 and then the continents look like this, and they come like this, and he gives you all, and the fossils, and the age of the universe, and all the wonderful things, and the dinosaurs that were in the billions of years, and everything, and the 4 billion, 8 billion, 11, whatever it is, and he gets the beginning, and now I want to ask a simple question: where did the molecules that made the Big Bang come from? And he says, okay, that we don't know, but the rest I answered you. Do you get how preposterous that is? Like that was my question. My question, let's start with that question. How does a train travel without a horse? That was the only question. Everything else wasn't the question. So it looks like it, great. When you say, I believe that God created the world, that is not belief. Normal, sane people understand that. So if you believe that, you're not using your power of Emunah. Where does Emunah begin? Yeah.
I have a question. I understand what they're saying, that if you believe that Hashem created the world, we know Hashem created
Right.
the world.
We know it.
But does it make sense to say that if you believe something that's beyond your knowledge, so we know Hashem created the world, but we don't know how. So meaning if someone is believing
exactly.
they have to keep believing, because if they stop believing, the world can fall apart.
Hold on.
If they're not
One second. It's not belief, it's knowledge. Do you know like astronomy? Do you know like, can you calculate Kiddush HaChodesh when the next moon's gonna come, etc. Right?
I can't.
So do you believe that they know it? It's not belief. It's just I didn't learn it yet, but it is knowledge. It's very intellectual. It's very simple intellect. It's very intricate intellect, but you have to learn it. And if you learn it, you got it. It's not belief. It's not Emunah. But here's your point. Where does Emunah begin? When the mind cedes control. As soon as the brain cannot take it anymore, that's when Emunah begins. Let's take an example. Yes. Knowledge is in Teva, that's in nature. When you transcend nature, now we're beginning to enter the realm and the domain of Emunah. So when you say, I believe that the Creator is Hashem, of course you're right. If you say that I believe that Hashem is the Creator, now you got a problem. The Creator is God, but God is not the Creator. Difference is, of course God created the world. Listen, do you work for the sanitation department? Are you a sanitation worker? No. But do you take out the garbage? So you are a sanitation worker. If you were a little germ living in the garbage bag, then when they see you coming, they're like, there they come, the great massive sanitation worker, there they are. But you say, it's true I take out the garbage, but I am not a sanitation worker. Now, you actually are. When you take out the garbage, you are doing sanitation. Hashem is truly unlimited. So when you say God created the world was created by Hashem. That's intellectual. Intellect is that there's a creator. But to limit the creator to saying that to limit Hashem, that all he is the creator, that's limiting. Hashem is unlimited. Now there's a piece where you can actually begin to understand that. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan has a good piece. He says, you ever thought of what nothing is? Can you imagine, can you meditate on nothing? Can you? We are created, yesh me'ayin. Something from nothing. People say, I'm doing nothing. Or, what are you thinking about? Nothing. No, you're not. You've never known. You've never been able to enter the realm of nothing. You don't even know what nothing is. What happened before? What happens after? That's where the issue is. What's before and what's after. Notice how we are in our lane. We have no clue of anything besides our lane. So Rabbi Kaplan says, you want to imagine what nothing is? He says, good. Can you imagine what's behind your head right now? Of course you could. You know why? Because you walked into the room before you came in and you know what's behind. But he says, no. Let me tell you what that means. That means, you're looking right now forward. Try look backwards. Close your eyes and look backwards. Now, look backwards. He says, not that you should flip your eyes as if your eyes are behind your head. No, your eyes are here. Now go inside and go look from the back of your head and try to see what you see. I'm not going to try the exercise right now, but if you do it, what you'll discover is you go a little bit in sugar. It's a little bit crazy when you do it, because you discover I'm trying to look behind and I can't see behind. That's the beginning of nothingness. We have no access to know what it means to be nothing. Here's why. Hashem put us into Olam Shana Nefesh. The world exists because of time, space, soul. That means at any given moment there's me, the person. I'm occupying a space in a particular time. And so I'm limited to time, space, and people. But Hashem is above the tempo-spatial reality. He's above time and he's above space. He's timeless and he's spaceless and he's faceless. So that means he created time and space. You know what I'm going to ask? As a human being, created time. So it's pretty impressive. Hashem's been there long. He's been there trillions of years.
Isn't he lonely?
Isn't he lonely, right? That kind of question. Because, what do you mean? Aren't you alone? And how long does it last for? Whatever. I have no way to begin to understand. My intellect is boxed. My intellect begins after you talk about time and space, and you give me a box of time, space, and people. Within that box, now, boom, I can think and intellectualize and do whatever I can. That means, you ever see a fish in a fish tank? There's one fish, a goldfish, and he's in the tank. And you come in the morning, and he's swimming from there to there. And you come in the afternoon, and he's right there. And you come the next day, and the next week, and the next month, and he's boom, boom, boom. That's what he's doing. Well, guess what? That's what we are. Hashem put us into a little space. It's called tzimtzum in the Arizal's language. It's a limitation. He put us into time and space, and he says, okay, go, knock yourself out. And we're like, boom, think that, I feel that. Look at yourself. We're all the time, the fish tank, you know what it is? Intellect, emotions, thought, speech, action. That's your world. And you have on top of it pleasures and desires. That's it. Pleasure, desire, intellect, emotion, thought, speech, and action. In those, you're running around chasing your tail all the time, up, down, left, right, center, backwards, and forwards. What's Emunah? Emunah is the force that allows us to transcend the limitation. Emunah is the force that allows us to rise above the tzimtzum. And when you rise above the tzimtzum, now you're in the divine domain. So what does that mean? Do you believe that Hashem is above time and space? Do you believe that Hashem is unlimited? These are things which are not possible for us to, there's no way for us to grasp what that means. It's not possible. This is like a realization of something which is completely otherworldly. And what we Jews have built into our psyche, built into our system, is that God is. Now, just to give an example of what this means. Can Hashem make this room over here, pick it up, 100 feet up in the air, and make the room fly high without the attached neighbors? Can he? Yeah, why not? You know why? Because he can do whatever he wants. Can Hashem make a flame separate from the match? So I have a matchstick, and the flame goes by itself. Can he? Of course. You know why you say of course? Because even though you know it doesn't make any sense, but your intellect understands it. Okay, why not? Okay, you rise above intellect. I'm good. You could do that. Yep. Try this one. Can Hashem make an elephant walk through a pinhole? Now, before you say, can he? Can an elephant walk through a pinhole? Of course Hashem can do it, right? How? You know what you're thinking? You're thinking, what do you mean? You think the elephant shrink him down and go through the pinhole? Sure. Pila bukupatamacht, that's called. Or he'll take the pinhole, expand it for a second, like in the cartoons, right? And then the elephant walks through, and then we did it. Let's reframe the question. Can God make an elephant walk through a pinhole? Keep the elephant the size of the elephant. Keep the pinhole the size of the pinhole. Now tell me, can he do it? You're just saying that. You can't imagine that. You can't begin to imagine. You say, well, can Hashem do that? No. I mean, of course he can, because he can do anything, but no, I have no idea what you're saying. Right. For Yesh Me'ayin, exactly. Exactly. That's like the Yesh Me'ayin example. Can Hashem create something from nothing? That's the question.
Can I ask you something that really
Yeah.
it's difficult for me to...
Hashem is. He's above limitation. He's above tzimtzum. He's above the world. And that's where Emunah begins. Emunah is the force that binds a mommy to her little baby. The force that connects them together is called Emunah. Vahi omen et hadasa. The force that binds you to God is that everyone in the world can believe in Hashem. But when they say believe, what they're saying is, I believe in the Creator. That's not belief. Jews don't believe. We have Emunah. Emunah is a whole different world. Emunah is connection. That's what it is. And the Pasuk tells us, Shchon eretz u're'ei emunah. Emunah means you have to nurture, you have to shepherd it, you have to work the Emunah into your life. You have to toil in order for the Emunah to become real. U're'ei emunah. So what does that mean? How do you nurture the Emunah? So let's first get the parameters straight. The parameters of Emunah are, God is. The world is just happens to be a creation of Hashem, but God is. At the epicenter of creation, the reason for creation is, the Torah tells us, Bereishis, bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz, bishvil Yisrael u'bishvil haTorah. God created the world for the sake of Jews and for the sake of Torah. What does that mean? The world rotates around the Jew and around Torah. Everything in the world is because of you. You want to know how that works? Consider how you have a relationship with your child. Your child's being is etched into you. Everything else in the world happens from outside in. Your child is from inside out, right? When you think about your child, my child is a part of me. It's called alu b'machshava. Everything else in the world is created by Hashem's speech. Jews are the children of Hashem. We come from Hashem's thought. A Jew is not a creation, but rather he's part of the Creator. Just like your children, you're not something on the outside. My children belong to my core inner being. It's part of it's chiseled into my own essence. A Jew is chiseled into Hashem's essence. So when we talk about Emunah, Hashem is, on that level, the Jew and God are one. And what we need to do is nurture that and work that into our lives. If you meet a Jew and you want to give him a dose of Emunah, how do you do it? The best way, by the way, is on Pesach, give him matzah. Matzah, boom, you give him Emunah. How do you give a Jew Emunah in general? It's through when a Jew studies Torah. Meet a Jew, don't simply talk to him about Judaism. Instead, we have a conversation about Judaism, and I'm going to invite you to my Shabbat table, and we're going to see the beauty of the Shabbat meal. That's very, very, very nice, and you should do all that. But at the core, you know how you do it? Give him a mitzvah to do. Give a lady a Shabbat candle to light, and let her actually do the mitzvah of lighting the candle. You take a guy and you put the boxes on his arm and on his head, and he sits over there and he feels he's beamed up into a new reality. When you give a Jew a mitzvah, what you're doing is you're increasing you're giving a dose of Emunah. When a Jew studies Torah, that's Emunah. So if you invite him to your Shabbat meal because you want to keep Shabbos, then yeah, he'll feel the power of what it means to be a Jew. Absolutely. But not because of the conversation. It's because of the mitzvah, the actual thing. When he puts a mezuzah on his door, he feels that the connection is there. Because mitzvahs belong to the outer stratosphere. They're not part of the actual creation. That's where you find Emunah. If you, when a Jew does tzedakah, you literally, you change the whole experience of tzedakah. You literally completely transform yourself. That's what tzedakah does, the charity. And when you daven, what happens to you? You connect to God. When a Jew works his way up to say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What's Shema Yisrael? It means, I get that I am a Yisrael. I get that Hashem is our God. I get that there's nothing to be afraid of, because the whole world, the whole thing in the first place is divine. It's just me and Hashem. There is nothing else. And so I live my life from within that inner space. You know, at my house a couple of weeks ago was a very special Jew. I met him the first time. He actually called me out of the blue. He's good friends with my brother, and he lives in Eretz Yisrael, and he comes here a lot for business. So he started looking at my phone, and I saw the name Vigla. So he calls me up. He says, "Are you related?" I said, "Yes, my brother." He said, "Why are you in my phone?" I know why he's in my phone, because a couple of years ago, my brother wanted something to bring over, and I met him to give it over to him. So, but he didn't meet me. He said, I want to come say hello. I said, good. He came for Shabbos. He sat by us for a meal. And fascinating guy. He actually wrote a couple of books on his business trips. See a Jew who originates from Bnei Brak, and he went out to the business world. And his book is all about, I see God everywhere. He's got stories of how he sees God. So he told us one of these stories. The story was like this. Many years ago, there was, I think maybe, 20 years ago, something like that, there was a business plan that came his way. So they were building in Times Square. They were building an exhibition of the world, a miniature world. I don't know if anyone saw it. I actually took my wife there once. We went there to see it. It was beautiful. It was a miniature world. You had to pay whatever you pay to get in, and you get to see, like in Israel, if you've ever seen it in Holy Land, the mini Holy Land. So everything in small, the whole world in small, very cool. And because it's made by Jews, you actually also get to see Israel in small, and they didn't wipe it off the map, thank God. So it was amazing. Anyway, he says, they came to him and they said, this project cost $40 million, and would you like to invest? They wanted him to invest $5 million. So he studies the project from a guy, some Jew came over to him. He's studying the project and understanding what it is, and he sees, it's very likely to make the money because they were expecting that the amount of visitors should make every year, every year brings in $20 million, whatever the numbers were. So he's studying the thing, learning, understanding, and everything before he's putting in all this money. $5 million as a real partner. Anyway, he says, as I'm learning it, what do I discover? I asked the guy, how many days a year are you open? So the guy says, in the business plan, 364 days a year. As I read the plan, I always wonder I didn't ask him, what's the 365th? I guess it's Kippur. 364 days a year they're open. So he says, what about Shabbos? He says, Shabbos, we figured out a solution. We sold it to a non-Jew. It's all good. He says, what do you mean? You can't do that. We don't do that for businesses that should close. He says, no, it's all 100% legal. He spoke to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Cohen was, and we went over to him, and he called that guy's Rav. The guy really, really did the proper number and understood and did it with halacha, everything fine. He says, my Rav told me, he says, he listened to it, he says, listen, it's not optimal, but I mean, they really did a proper thing, so you could do it if you want to. It's not the best, but you could. It's 100% fine. He says, okay. I'm thinking to myself, yes, no, and I'm debating. I told the guy, give me 2 weeks. I need to think about it. In the meantime, he says, I'm in the Ramada in Yerushalayim. And I walk out. There was the night, Matzi Shabbos, the night before Shiva B'Tam was the next day. I walk out into the Ramada, and in there I see a guy comes over, car comes in. He says, a guy I hadn't seen him for many years. The guy was, if I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected, he said it was Mr. Schreiber, the owner of B&H. And I see the guy, and I say to him, I knew who he was, I had been friendly with him years before, but I hadn't seen him in many years. The guy said he hadn't been to Israel in 15 years. Punk, now he was there. Punk, he comes in, he comes to the hotel. I said, but I've got to ask you a question. The guy told him, come tomorrow night after the fast. And after the fast, Sunday night, I went to meet him. Sat down with the guy, so I asked him a question, I got this business deal. Here's the story. They want to sell it to a guy. I know B&H closes down, right? Chol HaMoed, they closed down. Shabbos, he's like, you can't even browse the website. Those guys are making millions of dollars a day, and the Shabbos, it's closed. So I showed him the whole thing. I said to him, what should I do? They're making over here, you make a partnership with the guy, and it's fine. He says, the guy looked at me and he said, listen here. If you want, you can make a partnership with the guy. Go ahead, you could. He says, but me, when I do partnerships, I much prefer to make a partnership with Hashem. And Hashem says, if you keep Shabbos, you become a shutaf l'Kadosh Baruch Hu b'ma'aseh bereishis. I prefer to not rely on any heterim and anything else. I'm going with me and Hashem. He said, I heard this, and I said, what are the chances? I called the guy up. I told him that we need to shut down on Shabbos. He didn't want, so I did not invest. The business was opened, and unfortunately it didn't work because the visitors did not come. It was too much, and so it made a fraction of the money. The following year they got all the investors to double their money, and then it didn't succeed. Anyway, it was shut down shortly after that. Actually moved to New Jersey somewhere where it wasn't, when the rent wasn't as high as Times Square. And he says, I met the guy a couple of years later, and he told me, you should know that you saved yourself $5 million, and it would have been $10 million is what you saved yourself by not going in. A Jew lives in a different domain to everybody else. You want to know what it means to live with Emunah? Here's what it means. To understand that God creates the world, that's very nice. That's not where Emunah is. Emunah is a force by which us Jews feel absolutely one and connected with the divine. We accomplish it by nurturing the force of Emunah through our Torah and mitzvahs, through Torah Avodah Gemilas Chasadim, when we do Chesed, when we do davening. And when we sit down and we close our eyes and we meditate and reflect, and we get to this idea that Shema Yisrael, listen here, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, Hashem is one. What does it mean Hashem is one? Echad means he's one in the 7 heavens, 8 and 4, 7 heavens and earth, and the 4 corners, and you close your eyes and go like this, and what you want to do is you want to actually live that and embody that in your life. You want to actually work it into your life that Hashem is one. But before you say Hashem Echad, you know what you say? Hashem Elokeinu. There's only one way for God to become one in the rest of the world. And that is if he first becomes one by me. If Hashem becomes Elokeinu, he becomes my God. I want to make God into my God. What does it mean to make God into my God? It's to realize, say we just came from Tisha B'Av, to realize that Hashem tells us, I suffer your suffering, I struggle your struggle, I feel your pain, and live with you. If you want to understand what that means, it's very simple. Ask any mother about her child, and you'll see what it means. It means, I'm not part of your struggle, I'm above it. But when you struggle, I literally feel the struggle with you. And Hashem tells us, Banim atem la Hashem Elokeichem. You're children of Hashem. You're children of God. You and God are one. The Jew's being is etched into Hashem's essence. What's Emunah? It's the force. Emunah means like this. I have Emunah. I connect to this idea that Hashem is unlimited. Truly unlimited. And what's amazing about it is, that idea is not abstract. It penetrates my very being and I live with that. So I feel God's presence all the time and everywhere. So when I feel the fear of anti-Semitism attacking me from all sides, and I feel the nations, it's too strong, it's too powerful, I have to do everything I possibly can to protect myself. If I need to get a gun, I get a gun. And if I need to make sure that I participate in elections and whatever I can, I have to do everything. But sometimes I get to feel like whatever I do is useless because there's just not enough of us. You think in New York City there's a lot of Jews. Well, there's a lot more of everybody else. And we don't stand a fighting chance. What's our power? Godoil Horoya. Our power is in the greatness of the shepherd. We're tiny little sheep among 70 wolves. You know what the scariest thing actually is? Scariest thing is when we feel protected. When we feel like it's fine. That's petrifying. Because it's never fine. If you feel it's fine, that's when you're stuck. When a Jew exercises his emunah and works it into his life, realizing that anti-Semitism is real, it always was real, we actually are helpless, we actually don't stand a fighting chance, and first and foremost what you do is you say, Bat Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. What does it mean Hashem Elokeinu? I'm not afraid, I'm a proud Jew. I stand tall, I stand proud, fear not. I'm going to say my point. I'm going to walk around wearing my Jewish gear everywhere. Proud yarmulke, proud everything, walking where I do. My wife just went she went to visit Poland recently with her mother. So they walked into the city where their family came from. I forget the name, some middle of nowhere. And they walk into the place, which used to be a thriving Jewish center. They couldn't find one iota of any semblance of anything that was Jewish, including no cemeteries, just a restaurant. But there was one guy who walks inside there and he sees them, a Polish guy, and he looks at them. I'm not sure how he knew they're Jewish, but he did. And he's like, wow, to see Jews walking, Sunik, that's what it's called. To see Jews walking around Sunik, unbelievable. Like, he was an old man. And he says, I remember, this was a Jewish town. And when you walk inside there as a proud Jew, and you're right, there's a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, I'm not scared to voice my Judaism outside into the world. But before I'm not scared of the world, I'm not scared inside, internally. Because I say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. I'm not scared of my own self. I'm not the anti-Semitism, my own anti-Semite, the guy inside me, the negative force inside me. I'm not scared. I'm a proud Jew. My life is a divine being. That's my life. When I work on that, I nurture my emunah, then I go into the world, I say Hashem Echad openly. Out in the open, I start working my way out. It's not that I don't do things, I do. But when you are afraid, fear is a total no-go. We don't go anywhere near there. We go into a space of Hashem taking care of us, takes care of us, always took care of us, always will take care of us. We're still here. And I get to that space of total trust, like a little baby, trusting mommy, trust in Hashem. That's the power of Emunah. Emunah is a force of God is creating the world every single second. Therefore, He's creating you right now, and God is only good. Therefore, no one and no other force has any power over me. Get that, internalize that, and live from within that space. That's the power of Emunah. And Emunah needs to be worked into our lives, into the open.